The first victory was only the beginning. After the battle, the human fleet moved deeper into alien space. Each system they entered told the same story: wreckage, fire, and resistance. The aliens fought hard, but humanity fought harder. The Admiral knew this war would not be short. He had seen too many lives lost in the first clash. Yet he also knew something else: the aliens were no longer confident. Their first defeat had shaken them. They had begun to see humans not as a weak species, but as an equal force. In the halls of the alien capital, the leaders argued. Some demanded peace. Others wanted to gather every ship they had for one final strike. Fear spread among their citizens. For centuries, the Empire had been secure, untouchable. Now rumors spread of human warships burning through defenses like fire through paper. One alien governor whispered to another, "They fight with the strength of 10 worlds. How can we stop them?" The answer never came. Meanwhile, humanity prepared for the next stage. Shipyards across the colonies worked without rest. Engineers built new carriers, dreadnoughts, and transports. Factories produced endless supplies of weapons, shields, and armor. Pilots trained day and night, ready to take their place in the Great Fleet. On Earth, the streets were filled with banners and lights. People sang songs of unity. Children learned in schools about Epsilon Prime and the courage of the fallen. Humanity was no longer divided by nations. Now they stood together, one people, one purpose. Admiral Renard stood on the bridge of eternal resolve, watching the new fleets assemble. He had grown older since the war began, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes were sharp. "Report," he said. "7 new fleets ready, Admiral," his officer replied. "Reinforcements from the colonies will join within weeks." Renard nodded. "Good, we will need them. The enemy will not surrender easily." The war spread across the stars. Human fleets struck deep into alien systems, breaking through defenses, cutting supply lines, and freeing worlds the aliens had once ruled. Some alien species long enslaved rose up and joined the humans. They offered guides, ships, and information. Humanity welcomed them as allies. For the first time, the Empire felt fear not only from outside but from within. Their control over conquered species began to crumble, yet victory came at a cost. Every battle left scars. Human ships burned. Crews were lost. Families wept. The Admiral carried these losses with him, writing letters to the families of the fallen, reminding them that their sacrifice had meaning. One night, standing alone in his quarters, he looked out at the stars. "How many more must fall," he whispered, "before this war ends?" But he knew the answer: as many as it took. The turning point came at the Battle of VelixPrime. VelixPrime was the heart of the alien empire's industry. Massive shipyards circled its moons, building fleets day and night. If humanity could take it, the aliens would lose their greatest source of strength. If they failed, the Empire would rebuild faster than humanity could fight. The alien fleet gathered there, greater than any before. Millions of soldiers stood ready on the ground, and every weapon of the Empire was pointed at the skies. The human armada arrived in silence, filling the darkness with 700,000 warships, the largest fleet ever seen in the galaxy. The battle began with waves of fighters. Human carriers launched tens of thousands of craft, filling the void with light. Alien interceptors rose to meet them, and the skies turned into a storm of motion. Explosions lit up the darkness as fighters clashed in furious swarms. Then the capital ships moved in. Human dreadnoughts advanced, their guns roaring. Alien battleships answered with lances of energy. Shields cracked, armor melted, and ships burned. The Admiral gave calm orders. "Push the left flank. Hold the center. Do not let them draw us into the planet's defenses." The fleets clashed for hours. Neither side gave ground. Space filled with wreckage, flames, and silence, broken only by the thunder of weapons. On the 3rd day of battle, the humans made their move. Renard ordered the fleet to divide. Half pressed the alien lines head-on, holding them in place. The other half swung wide, circling behind the alien fleet, cutting them off from their supply lines. The aliens realized too late what was happening. Their fleet was surrounded. Human ships pressed them from every side, hammering them without mercy. The alien flagship tried to break through, but it was struck again and again until its shields failed. Human dreadnoughts fired together, and the ship exploded in a blaze that shook the system. The alien fleet broke. Some tried to flee. Others fought to the end. But humanity had the advantage now, and they pressed it. When the battle ended, VelixPrime was theirs. The massive shipyards burned, their factories shattered. The alien empire had lost its heart. On the bridge of eternal resolve, Renard stood silent as reports came in. Losses were heavy, but the victory was complete. Humanity had struck a blow that could not be undone. "Signal all fleets," he said at last. "The enemy is broken. The war will not end today, but the path is clear. We will bring peace to the stars." News spread across the galaxy. Alien citizens began to rise against their rulers. Some worlds declared independence. Others surrendered to humanity, choosing freedom over slavery. The empire that had once ruled unchallenged began to fall apart. Months later, the war was finally over. The alien leaders signed a treaty, surrendering their fleets and their throne. They had no choice left. Their empire had crumbled, their power destroyed. Humanity stood victorious. The Admiral returned to Earth. Crowds filled the streets, cheering and waving banners. Families wept with joy as soldiers returned home. The shipyards rang with celebration. Humanity had not only survived but had risen to a place no one had imagined. Standing before the people, the Admiral spoke. "We came together when the galaxy thought we would fall. We stood against an empire that ruled for centuries, and we showed them the strength of unity. We do not seek conquest, we seek peace. But let the stars remember this: humanity will never bow." The cheers echoed across the world. In the years that followed, humanity became a beacon. They rebuilt the colonies, welcomed allies, and helped free species that had been enslaved. The galaxy, once ruled by fear, now saw hope. The memory of Epsilon Prime was never forgotten. Monuments were built in every colony, honoring those who had fallen. Children learned their names. Their sacrifice became the foundation of a new era. Admiral Renard lived to see peace spread. His hair turned white, his steps slowed, but his spirit remained strong. One night, standing once more on the bridge of eternal resolve, he whispered to the stars, "We answered with 700,000 warships." But in truth, it was not the ships. It was the people, the will to fight, the courage to stand. The colony of Haven 12 had always been a quiet place. It was far from the busy trade routes, hidden near a calm yellow star, and built on a world full of wide green plains and deep blue lakes. Families lived in white houses that looked out over the valleys. Children ran between the farms, and at night the sky was filled with more stars than most humans had ever seen in their lives. For many, Haven 12 felt like a paradise. The people of Haven 12 believed they were safe. They were far from trouble. They had no enemies, no soldiers, and no weapons greater than simple patrol ships. The colony was not a fortress. It was a home. One clear evening, a farmer named Elias stood outside his house and watched the twin moons rise. His daughter Mira pointed at the night sky. She loved to count the lights of the transport ships that passed above. But this night was different. There were no ships. The comm towers were silent. The stars looked cold and empty. The next morning, the central hub received its last message. A miner in the northern hills reported strange lights above the clouds. He described them as shadows moving against the stars. His words were filled with fear. Before the message could finish, the signal cut off. No one in Haven 12 knew what was coming. Hours later, the sky above the colony grew dark. Black shapes appeared high in orbit, blocking the sunlight. They were not human ships. They were larger, with jagged edges, moving in perfect silence. The people of Haven 12 tried to send calls for help, but their comm signals were jammed. Panic spread through the colony. Some thought it was a drill. Others prayed it was a mistake. But soon the truth was clear. The alien fleet descended. Beams of white fire rained down from the sky. Farms vanished in smoke. Towers of glass and steel melted in seconds. The colony's patrol ships, small and fragile, rose to fight but were destroyed before they could fire a single shot. Elias held his daughter close as the ground shook. He looked to the sky and saw the lights of the enemy burning everything he had ever known. His only thought was that he must keep Mira safe. But there was no safety left. By the end of that day, Haven 12 was gone. On Earth, the colony's silence was noticed quickly. For days, no messages came. At first, the Council of Earth thought it was a technical problem. But when the scout ship Aurora was sent to investigate, the truth was revealed. Captain Amina Saul of the Aurora walked through the ruins of Haven 12 with her crew. They found no survivors. Buildings were shattered, farms turned to ash, and the surface of the planet bore the marks of heavy bombardment. The colony had not fallen by accident. It had been destroyed with purpose. Amina stood inside the ruined comm hub. She touched the broken screens and felt the weight of silence pressing down. This was no storm, she said to her officers. This was war. Her words were sent back to Earth, and when the Council saw the images, the chambers fell silent. The members of the Council had feared this day would come. Humanity had spread across the stars, but they had never faced a full attack on a peaceful colony. Haven 12 was not a target of war. It was a warning. The Council gathered in Unity Hall, the great dome of glass that overlooked Earth's oceans. Representatives from every nation, every city, and every orbital colony were present. News of the destruction had already spread among the people. The entire planet was watching. One elder stood and spoke. Haven 12 was not a military base. It was a home. It was destroyed because we are human. Whoever did this believes we will not answer. They believe we will remain silent. They are wrong. The chamber echoed with agreement. The Council knew the name of the enemy. Long ago, explorers had whispered of a power called the Variks Dominion. The Variks were known for conquest. They struck weak worlds, burned them, and moved on. Until now, they had ignored humanity. But Haven 12 proved that had changed. For the first time in centuries, Earth called for full unity. The hidden shipyards beneath the oceans, the great dry docks on the moon, the stations in the asteroid belt, all were ordered to prepare. Every reserve fleet was to rise. Every ship that had once been mothballed was to be made ready again. Across Earth, citizens gathered to watch the skies. Massive hangar doors opened, revealing warships that had not flown for generations. Engines roared, lights burned, and hulls of steel lifted slowly into orbit. Families stood on rooftops and saw the heavens fill with the shapes of rising giants. The people remembered Haven 12. They remembered the families who had lived there, the children who had played under its twin moons. They remembered the silence that had followed. That memory turned sorrow into strength. The voice of Earth's High Commander carried across every channel. We are not a people who forget. We are not a people who bow. Humanity has been struck, but we will rise. For every home lost, we will build a shield of fire. For every colony destroyed, we will answer with the strength of all. Today we rise not as nations, but as one. Let the galaxy remember this day. And so it began. The first fleets gathered above Earth, forming great rings of light and metal. Old ships were joined by new, each one carrying the flag of humanity. The count grew larger and larger until it reached a number no alien could have expected. 700,000. It was a force built not for conquest, but for survival. Yet in the hearts of those who watched, it was more than that. It was justice. It was the promise that no human colony would ever be erased again. Among the crowds on Earth, a young boy asked his mother, "Will they bring back Haven 12? She held his hand and whispered, "No, but they will make sure no other world is lost." Above them, the sky burned with light as ship after ship rose into the stars. Haven 12 was gone, but its silence had awakened something greater. Humanity was no longer a scattered people across distant colonies. They were one. And the news of Haven 12 spread like fire through every corner of human space. Traders whispered it on the stations near Jupiter. Farmers on Mars stopped their work and listened in silence as the reports were read aloud. Children in the orbital schools asked their teachers why no one had saved the families of Haven 12. Everywhere there was one feeling, grief. But grief did not remain grief for long. It turned into something else. Resolve. The Council of Earth sent a single message to every colony. Every shipyard, every fleet base hidden among the stars, prepare for war. On the blue seas of Earth, the old naval yards that had rested for centuries began to move again. Great doors opened in the oceans, and from beneath the waves, massive carriers rose. Some were new, gleaming with silver plating. Others were old, their hulls scarred from past battles but still strong. Each one carried the flag of humanity. On the moon, whole cities stopped their daily routines as the shipyards released dreadnoughts that had been built but never flown. One by one, they lifted from the craters, leaving trails of light in the darkness. Children pressed their faces to glass domes and watched in awe as ships the size of mountains drifted into orbit. In the asteroid belt, miners watched as the defense assembly seized abandoned stations and turned them into command posts. Battleships that had been left sleeping for decades were awakened. Engineers cheered as the old engines roared back to life. The numbers grew faster than anyone expected. Every ship mattered, whether it was a small corvette or a mighty battle carrier. Earth had been building in secret and in silence for generations. Old rivalries between nations had left scars, but each had built fleets to defend themselves. Now those fleets were united. Admiral Juno Hale stood on the command bridge of the great ship Iron Resolve. The ship had just been lifted from its dock near Saturn, and its systems glowed as fresh crews worked at every console. Juno looked at the display before her, which showed the gathering fleets across the solar system. She had served for 30 years and never had she seen so many ships move as one. "They thought we were divided," she said quietly to her officers, "but they forgot who we are." One of her officers, a young commander, asked, "Admiral, do you believe we can win?" Juno did not answer at once. She thought of Haven 12, of the silent farms of the ashes. Then she straightened her shoulders. "We do not fight to win glory. We fight so that no child has to fear the sky above their home. And for that reason, yes, we will win." Her words spread quickly among the fleet. Officers repeated them to their crews, and soon they became a promise. Humanity fights for its children, and it does not lose. On Earth itself, the sight of the Armada rising was something no one forgot. Families gathered on rooftops. Crowds filled the shores of oceans. Farmers stopped their work in the fields. Everywhere, people looked upward. From the great dry docks, wave after wave of warships rose. They lifted with slow power, engines glowing red, blue, and white. Each one carried the name of a city, a river, a mountain, or a hero from Earth's long history. 700,000 ships. The number was spoken in disbelief at first. No one had truly known how many vessels humanity had hidden across its colonies and stations. The true strength of Earth had always been kept secret, waiting for a time of great need. Now that need had come. Not all voices agreed at first. Some leaders of colonies far from Earth feared that war would bring more destruction. They remembered that Haven 12 had no weapons, and they worried their own homes would share the same fate. But the Council sent messages to them. "If we do not rise together, we will fall one by one. Today it is Haven 12, tomorrow it will be you. Stand with us," and slowly the fear turned into courage. Ships from colonies beyond Pluto joined the assembly. Fleets from Mars, Europa, and Titan added their banners to Earth's. Even small outposts with only a few corvettes sent them forward. Humanity was not many voices now. It was one. In the quiet of deep space, hidden scouts of the Varix Dominion watched the growing storm. They reported back to their commanders, expecting to hear laughter at human efforts, but the reports brought silence. One Varix commander studied the numbers and hissed in disbelief. 700,000? Impossible. They are not supposed to have such strength. His aide replied, "They hid it." They waited. The commander stared at the display of human fleets, uneasy for the first time. Then we may have awakened a giant. Back on Earth, engineers worked without rest. Supply lines were established from one end of the solar system to the other. Shipyards built weapons, armor, and fuel day and night. Families sent letters, food, and tools to the fleets. Even those who could not fight gave their strength in other ways. The Council broadcast messages of unity across every channel. One message, spoken by a young woman whose family had lived on Haven 12, became the most remembered. "My parents built a farm under the twin moons. They believed it would feed others for generations. But now the farm is ash. The moons shine on nothing but ruins. I tell you this, let there be no more havens lost. Let no child see their home burn. We rise not for conquest, but for life. Let the stars remember us." Her voice echoed across ships, stations, and colonies. Soldiers listened, and their eyes hardened with determination. Citizens listened, and their hearts burned with pride. By the end of the third month after Haven 12, the fleets had gathered fully. The Armada stretched across orbits like rings of fire, ships lined in perfect formation, each ready, each waiting. It was the largest force humanity had ever brought together. From the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Juno Hale looked at the endless expanse of ships. Her second-in-command whispered, "Admiral, it feels like the sky itself belongs to us now." Juno nodded. "It does not belong to us. It belongs to every child who will be born tomorrow. That is why we hold it. She then gave the order that marked the next stage. Signal all fleets. Begin combat drills. Humanity does not march to war unprepared. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Races who had once thought little of humans watched in awe. Some whispered that the humans were fools to reveal their numbers. Others whispered something else. Hope. There were smaller species who had suffered under the Variks' dominion for centuries. They had been conquered, enslaved, or silenced. They had long believed no one would ever stand against the Variks. But when they heard that humanity had raised 700,000 warships, something changed. The oppressed races of the galaxy began to hope. On Earth, the people kept watching the skies. Every night the heavens shone with the glow of ships in orbit. For the first time, humanity felt united as one. Nations that had once argued now stood shoulder to shoulder. Colonies that had once demanded independence now pledged their strength to the whole. The memory of Haven 12 burned in every heart. It was not forgotten. It would never be forgotten. And so the assembly of the Armada was complete. The silence of Haven 12. The Armada of humanity was ready. 700,000 ships filled the orbits of Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. Dreadnoughts, carriers, corvettes, and cruisers all stood in formation. Their engines glowed like stars. Their weapons hummed with power, but the ships were not built to stay still. They were built to fight, and soon the chance to fight came. Admiral Juno Hale stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve. For weeks her fleets had trained, drilled, and tested every weapon. She had watched the crews grow sharper, the ships more confident, the captains more united. Still, she knew drills were not war. Only real battle would show the truth. Her eyes studied the fleet display. Hundreds of green lights marked human ships. Farther out at the edge of the screen, a red signal flashed. The first Variks fleet had arrived. It began with scouts. Sleek alien ships slipped into human space, testing the borders. They moved like predators, fast and quiet. One was caught near the asteroid belt. The corvette Starlight's Edge intercepted it. The Variks scout tried to run, but the human ship blocked its path. A short burst of plasma fire ended the chase. Pieces of alien metal drifted into the void. It was the first kill of the war. The news spread quickly. Across the Armada, cheers erupted. But Admiral Hale did not cheer. She knew the Variks would not stop with scouts. A greater test was coming. The test came 3 days later. Near the outer edge of Pluto's orbit, sensors detected hundreds of ships entering human space. The Variks had sent a battle fleet. It was not their largest force, but it was enough to test humanity's resolve. Admiral Hale sent the signal. Form the shield line. Prepare for contact. The fleets gathered near the Kuiper Belt. Human ships formed great arcs of steel, overlapping fields of fire. Carriers released waves of fighters. Dreadnoughts aligned their main cannons. The silence of space was heavy, filled with waiting hearts. Then, the Variks appeared. Their ships were jagged and black, shaped like claws tearing through the void. They moved with harsh precision, sliding into formation without hesitation. Their weapons glowed with a pale green light. They had conquered many species with this same power, but never before had they faced 700,000 humans. On board the Iron Resolve, Admiral Hale gave the order. Open a channel. Let them hear us. The Variks commander appeared on the screen, a tall figure with sharp, cold eyes. His voice was low and heavy. You are humans. You are small. You are weak. You should have hidden instead of rising. Leave the stars or we will burn your worlds. Admiral Hale's face remained calm. Her voice was firm. You destroyed Haven 12. You killed farmers, children, families. You think we are weak because we do not seek conquest. You are wrong. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not run. We fight and we endure. She ended the channel. Her officers looked to her. Admiral, what are your orders? Her voice was steady. We hold the line. Fire when ready. The first battle of the war began. Human cannons lit the dark. Beams of red, blue, and gold streaked across the void. The Variks answered with their own fire, a rain of green energy. The two fleets clashed in the cold silence of space, turning the emptiness into a storm of light. Fighters swarmed between the great ships. Dogfights spun like deadly dances. Missiles streaked from carriers, weaving trails of fire. Cruisers exchanged broadside after broadside. Dreadnoughts shook as their main cannons tore through Variks shields. The battle was fierce, but the humans were ready. They fought with unity, each ship covering the other. No vessel stood alone. and when one fell, 10 more pushed forward. Captain Idris of the Valiant Dawn shouted to his crew as enemy fire tore past their hull. "Hold steady! Shields up! Fire all batteries!" The Valiant Dawn struck a Varix warship broadside, splitting it apart in a burst of flame. The crew cheered, but Idris only pointed forward. Another target.
"Keep firing!"
Nearby, the carrier Hope of Mars released wave after wave of fighters. Thousands of small ships darted through the battle, striking at weak points in the Varix formation. Each pilot carried the memory of Haven 12 in their heart, and they flew with fury. For hours, the fleets battled. The Varix were skilled and ruthless, but they had expected a weak enemy. They found something else. Admiral Hale studied the reports on her display. Human losses were heavy, but the Varix were losing more. Their formations began to break. Their ships pulled back, trying to regroup. "Press the line," Hale ordered. "Do not let them escape." Human ships surged forward, driving the Varix back. The black ships of the enemy twisted and fell under the storm of fire. One by one, they were destroyed. Finally, the Varix commander gave the order to retreat. What remained of his fleet slipped into the dark, leaving wreckage behind. The battle was over. Silence filled the bridge of the Iron Resolve. Crews looked at one another in disbelief. They had done it. They had held the line. Admiral Hale closed her eyes for a moment. Then she said, "Signal all ships. Send the message to Earth. Humanity has stood and humanity has won its first battle." The message spread like light. Across Earth, across Mars, across every colony, people cheered. Bells rang. Families wept with relief and pride. For the first time since Haven 12, hope shone again. But not all hearts were light. Admiral Hale looked at the wreckage drifting through space. Human ships floated among the ruins. Brave crews had given their lives to hold the line. She knew this was only the beginning. The Varix would return, and next time they would come with more. Still, she also knew something else. The Varix had learned fear. They had thought humans weak. They now knew humans were not weak at all. Far away in the Varix dominion, their leaders listened to the reports with dark anger. The commander who had led the fleet knelt before them, speaking with shame. "The humans are stronger than expected," he said. "They fight with numbers, with discipline, with unity. They will not fall easily." The Varix leader's eyes narrowed. "Then we will not test them with small fleets. We will bring our full power. If they wish for war, we will give them war." But even as he spoke, whispers spread among the lesser races under Varix rule. Whispers of humans, whispers of 700,000 ships, whispers of hope. On Earth, Admiral Hale stood once more before her officers. She raised her hand in salute. "Remember this day," she said. "The day humanity's fleets rose not in fear but in strength. The day we showed the galaxy that we will not bow. The day the Varix learned we are not prey." The officers answered with one voice. "For Haven 12, for Earth, for all." The first great battle near Pluto had been won. Humanity had shown its strength, and the Varix dominion had been forced to retreat. Yet Admiral Juno Hale knew the truth. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The Varix would not forget their defeat. They would come back with larger fleets, with heavier weapons, and with fury. Waiting for them to strike again would only lead to more colonies burned. Humanity had a choice: hide behind defenses or march forward. The Council of Earth made its decision quickly. "We will not wait for them to attack another Haven 12, the High Commander declared. "We will take the war to them. The march begins now." The order spread across the Armada. Crews cheered and tightened their ranks. Engineers loaded fuel and weapons. Supply ships lined the fleets with food, medicine, and parts. The humans were not moving to defend a single system anymore. They were moving across the stars. Admiral Hale stood before her officers in the command chamber of the Iron Resolve. The great screen showed the map of the galaxy, dotted with Varix territory. "Our mission," she said firmly, "is not only to fight, it is to liberate. The Varix have enslaved many races. They rule by fear. That fear will end. Humanity will strike not as conquerors, but as allies to the oppressed. For every colony they took, we will bring freedom. For every world they burned, we will bring justice." Her words spread like fire across the fleets. For the first time, the Armada's purpose felt larger than revenge. It was about something greater. The march began with nearby Varix outposts. Human fleets struck in sudden waves. The Valiant Dawn led the attack on a mining station near a red dwarf star. The Variks garrison fought fiercely, but their weapons could not hold against the endless tide of human ships. Within hours, the station was captured. To the humans' surprise, they found hundreds of alien workers inside, thin, frail beings with gray skin, forced to mine under Variks' control. When the battle ended, these workers stepped out of their cages. Their eyes were wide with disbelief. They had expected death, not rescue. Captain Idris spoke gently through a translator. "You are free now. The Variks will not rule you again." The aliens fell to their knees, overwhelmed. Word spread quickly among them. The humans were not destroyers. They were liberators. More victories followed. Near the twin suns of Delta III, human cruisers broke through a Variks defense line and freed a planet of green jungles. On that world, a bird-like race had lived under Variks chains for generations. When the humans landed, the bird-like people sang a song so loud it echoed through the skies. In another system, human dreadnoughts cut through a Variks fortress station. The enslaved population inside, small reptilian beings, cried with joy as the humans opened their cages. Everywhere the humans marched, new allies rose. And everywhere they went, stories of Haven 12 spread. The name of the lost colony became a symbol of why the humans fought and why they refused to stop. But victory came with cost. Admiral Hale sat alone one night, staring at the reports. Hundreds of human ships had been lost. Thousands of soldiers and pilots would never return home. Each loss felt heavy. Yet she knew that if they stopped, those sacrifices would be wasted. Commander Lin, her second-in-command, entered the chamber. "Admiral, the crews are tired, but their spirits are strong. Every world we free makes them fight harder." Hale nodded. "Yes, but we must not become blind with pride. The Variks are still strong. Their core worlds remain untouched. The greatest battles are still ahead." Indeed, the Variks were preparing. In the dark halls of the Dominion, their leaders watched the reports with growing fury. Their empire had never been challenged like this before. Conquered races were rebelling. Whispers of human victory spread across the stars. The Variks High Warlord slammed his clawed hand on the table. "These humans are dangerous. They unite the weak. They spread hope. Hope is poison to our rule. We must crush them before it spreads further." And so, the Variks began to gather their grand fleet. Meanwhile, humanity's march continued. The Hope of Mars, a great carrier, became famous across the galaxy. Its fighters led daring raids deep into enemy territory. One young pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Keene, became a symbol of courage after saving her entire squadron by shielding them from enemy fire and guiding them back to safety. Songs were written about her on liberated worlds. The Iron Resolve remained the heart of the Armada. Wherever it went, fleets followed. Admirals from different nations, once divided by history, now stood side by side, united under one purpose. At every new world, humans planted no flags. Instead, they raised the banner of freedom. "We do not come to rule," Admiral Hale declared again and again. "We come to stand with you. Together we will end the Dominion." On one liberated world, a reptilian elder spoke to Hale. His voice trembled with age, but his eyes shone with hope. "For centuries we have waited for someone to stand against them," he said. "We prayed for strength. We did not think it would come from humans. But you came, and now we believe again." Admiral Hale bowed her head. "We fight because of Haven 12. We fight so that no world, yours or ours, will burn again." As the march went on, more races began to rise in rebellion. Small fleets of alien ships joined humanity's armada. They were not strong, but their presence meant something far greater than numbers. It meant unity. The galaxy was changing. For the first time, the Variks Dominion faced not just humans, but a coalition of many. The once scattered and oppressed were finding their courage. But Hale knew the march could not continue forever without facing the true storm. Reports from scouts confirmed it. The Variks were gathering their largest fleet near their core systems. It was a force so vast it rivaled humanity's armada. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, she stood before her officers. The map glowed red with the enemy fleet's size. "This will be the test," she said. "Everything we have done, every world we have freed leads here. The Variks believe they can break us with one great blow. We will show them they are wrong." Her officers saluted, their eyes burning with determination. On Earth, billions watched the broadcasts. Families gathered around screens. holding hands as they saw their fleets move deeper into Varric space. Children asked their parents why humans fought so far away. The answer was always the same: so that no war ever reaches us again. And so the march across the stars continued. The humans had risen not just as warriors, but as liberators. The galaxy, once silent in fear, now echoed with new songs of hope. But beyond the horizon, the greatest battle of all waited. The Varric's dominion was ready to unleash its full power. Humanity would soon face its hardest trial. Yet no matter what came,